Alright, so today I'm going to be surviving 100 days stranded in the desert in Minecraft. And not only am I stranded, but I'm also going to have to fight off insane mobs like giant cyclops, stone spiders, and even dragons. And there's a lot of things I want to get done in these 100 days. I want to get a full set of dragon scale armor, steal a dragon egg from a mother dragon, then hatch and tame that dragon to help me defeat a wither. It's going to get absolutely insane, so I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, please be sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and if you want, even check out my merch. And with that, let's just jump into it. Alright, so first off, obviously I needed tools and food because we are stranded in the desert with crazy mobs and I needed to protect myself. So once I got my tools, I went to go kill this boar for some food, only to learn that this thing is way scarier than I initially thought. I swapped to my sword and managed to kill him, not before he took out half of my HP. I continued to collect some food before deciding to cook it, so that way I at least had a little bit of something, and then I went to go check out the desert even more. I found these sheep, so I killed them so that way I could make a bed and sleep, but I didn't want to sleep right away because I wanted some string. I noticed this cyclops in the distance taking out some mobs, so I figured that was helping me out a little bit, so I went and killed this spider, and the primary reason I needed string is it was going to help me fish for some food so I wouldn't have to rely on just random mobs. Eventually, halfway through the night or so, I got all of the string that I needed, so I went to sleep. And then the next several days, I literally just spent the entire time fishing. I even managed to get this power 4 bow, and I used this fishing rod to its max, breaking it, getting myself a stack of fish. So we were pretty set for food for quite a long time. Now that I had all of the food I needed, I decided to go mining, and there was this really obvious ravine near the river where I was fishing, so that's where I started off. I came across that stone spider, which did massive damage to me, so I decided, nope, get the heck out of there. Luckily, it could not swim, so I managed to safely get away. I did eventually kill it, got a ton of iron armor, went back to the surface, and after doing some research, I realized I should probably kill these stone spiders. They drop a resource, which gives me a super OP pickaxe. So I used my bow, safely shot it from a distance, and used my water, because like I said, it can't swim, to kill 6 of these to get all that I needed. Now, all I needed to make my super OP pickaxe was just some diamonds, and it would be complete. And this perfectly highlights why you always stick to the side while strip mining, because I never would have found these diamonds if I didn't. But now that I had these diamonds, here is the crafting recipe that I used, and basically, what this tool does is it breaks everything in a 3x3 area when you mine with it. It is so absolutely insane, and it saves so much time with mining. Finding diamonds with this thing was going to be so incredibly easy. Literally right here, I already found diamonds in no time. So I spent the next couple of days just mining with this thing. I came out of this with over a stack of gold, over a stack of iron, and like 50 diamonds. It took quite a while, obviously, even with this axe, but it was more than worth it. Once I got back to the surface, I needed a house, so I got a ton of wood so that way I could craft these bundles of timber. Then, once crafting that with a few other supplies, we were able to craft ourselves a housing schematic. Combine 3 of those simple housing schematics to get an even better house. So I placed that down, and boom, we instantaneously had a super awesome house. It even had a chest with some supplies like carrots, so I could even start a carrot farm so I could have permanent food for the rest of this video. And on top of that, even had a ladder leading down to a mine shaft, so that was also really cool. So once I got everything sorted, I started crafting everything I needed. I got my full diamond armor, ton of diamond tools, and we still had a ton of diamond left over. So I went exploring my desert, and I came across this interesting structure. I wasn't really certain what was in here. I checked it out, and there was some levers and stuff. So after doing a little bit of research, I realized that there was a mob, Medusa, in here. Basically, if I look at her, she instantly kills me. So I had to go back to my house, came back with a blindfold to put on, and now I could actually look at her and fight her. So I went down there, and with the blindfold and all of my diamond armor, it wasn't exactly that challenging, and she even dropped a Gorgon head when I killed her. And apparently I can use this on a mob and turn them into stone. So I really quick went outside, tested it on the zombie, and just like that, it only has 1 use. So I didn't know that. I thought it had multiple uses. I literally just wasted one of the most powerful weapons in the game on a zombie. I felt like an absolute idiot. That was so dumb. After that though, I wanted to get some enchantments, and I also wanted a ton of arrows for my power 4 bow. So I went searching through mine shafts and caves until eventually I came across this skeleton spawner. So I mined out this area so that way I could turn this into just a really quick makeshift mob grinder. I didn't make anything too fancy because I didn't want to spend too much time. Basically, the water just leads all the skeletons down into a row and then leads them to one block where I'm easily able to kill all of them. Also, interesting enough, just off this mob grinder is actually a dragon den. You can see due to all of that blackstone right there, there's actually a dragon there. I accidentally fell, but yeah, I really need to get out of here. I cannot fight a dragon right now. They are way too scary and I am not at all prepared. Once I got all the XP that I needed, I also grabbed some obsidian so that way I could make an enchantment table and then got to enchanting all of my tools and armor. Now that I had all of that enchanted, I actually wanted to take a shot at defeating a low level dragon. So I came across this one dragon, which a dragon and cyclops were actually fighting each other, and right as I got there, the cyclops killed the dragon right in front of me. So I really quick got revenge for the dragon, killing the cyclops, and I even looted the dragon of some of its resources and finished getting all the other supplies. But unfortunately, now I was going to need a new dragon to defeat. But before I did that, I did go over to this dragon's nest and got some of its gold. I eventually came across this one fire dragon, and lucky for me, this all happened right as I was at a water pool, so this dragon really couldn't do much to me since I was sitting in the water. It did manage to get me down to about half HP, but thanks to my bow and my armor, it honestly wasn't able to do that much to me. This dragon was actually a level 3 dragon, which meant it dropped the dragon scales, and I could turn all of these dragon scales into armor. This armor is better than diamond, and it provides better protection against all dragons. And it also looks super sick. After I was done grinding for XP, enchanting all my new armor, I decided I want to go to the nether. And I didn't want just a boring nether portal, so I crafted this nether gate schematic. I slapped that down and instantaneously we got this super sick looking nether portal. It was absolutely amazing. It took quite a lot of supplies to build this thing, but it was worth it. So I went to the nether, and the primary reason I wanted to be here is I wanted netherite to turn a few of my tools into netherite tools. And with my axe, it's so easy. It still does take quite a while to find all of the netherite you need, but thanks to this axe, it is a whole lot faster. As you can see right there, we did get some netherite that I didn't actually immediately realize that I uncovered it, but we did eventually get it, and then we went back to mining until eventually we got the rest of the netherite we needed. I only wanted 8 for right now, so I could turn 2 of my tools into netherite, and I figured that'd be good enough. So I turned my sword into netherite, and I actually decided to get my pickaxe a few more enchantments before turning that also into netherite. I then went back to the nether and found a fortress. Took me quite a while actually to find a fortress. It was a little ways away, but find it I did. And I wanted to primarily kill wither skeletons because they dropped a new resource called wither bones. And I needed that so I could make a dragon bone sword. Use the resource I got from a fire dragon to make a flamed dragon bone sword. This thing was insane. It did nearly as much damage as my sharpest netherite sword, and it turned mobs on fire, and it did extra damage to other mobs. So once I was done enchanting that, I honestly didn't even have any need for my netherite sword anymore, so yeah, I just started using this thing. This sword does extra damage to ice dragons, so I searched around my desert until I finally found this ice dragon. I used my bow from a range to initially get it down to around half HP or so. I then went in with my fire sword, and this thing did so much damage to this poor dragon. Honestly, it wasn't even fair. It like knocked it back and just absolutely demolished it. It was so incredibly easy to take down this dragon. Now granted, it was only like a level 2 dragon, so it wasn't that hard of a fight. But yeah, this sword was so amazing. I absolutely loved it. Also near this ice dragon den was this one structure, which was really interesting because all of the blocks were indestructible, so I couldn't get in and it required a key. But you know, I didn't feel like getting the key. So I just went back to my base, grabbed some ladders and an ender pearl, and then just hurled it. Honestly, who needs a key when you just use good old-fashioned Minecraft mechanics to phase through the floor? Now, taking out this entire base took me honestly days to do. These mobs were incredibly powerful, and they had spawners to make them literally unlimitedly spawn. I had to very slowly make my way through this entire structure, using water to prevent them from getting close to me, using lava to burn them before I could finally get close enough to destroy their spawner. It took so incredibly long. It was so incredibly tedious. I even ran out of arrows doing all of this, and I had like 2 stacks of arrows on me. It was so insane. But eventually I did clear it out, and I grabbed these resources in the middle because after doing a little bit of research, these blocks can actually be combined to make a forge to make literally insanely powerful weapons. I didn't know if I'd have time to make those weapons in this video. Maybe not, but I did grab those resources. But other than that, this thing really didn't provide me with much other than, you know, just standard XP. Honestly, probably wasn't worth my time, but I just went ahead, phased my way out of there, and made my way home. Once I made my way home, I made yet another bone sword to combine that with the resource from an ice dragon to make an ice dragon bone sword. And this thing, it was just like the fire sword, except it did more damage to fire dragons, and it froze mobs in place when attacking them. So it made defeating things like cyclops so much easier, as I was able to hit them. They basically could not move anymore once I hit them with the sword, and I could just do a ton of damage with the bow while they're stuck there. So that was really nice to have, and if I ever did fight a fire dragon again in the future, this thing would come really in handy. And speaking of fire dragon, I never actually went down this ladder in my base before, but once I did, I realized that I accidentally built my house directly on top of a dragon den. So I decided, you know what, heck, we're gonna head down here and we're gonna defeat a level 4 dragon. This thing was honestly not that scary. It was a male dragon, so it didn't have any egg to protect or anything like that, and I obviously had the sword to counter it, so really wasn't that big of a deal. But I did decide also to cheese it a little bit. As you can see, I turned on my hitboxes so I could see better, and then I literally just attacked this thing through the wall, through this one little narrow spot before finally defeating it. Yeah, I just had to play it safe a little bit. I mean, after all, it was a level 4 dragon, so I collected the absolute massive amount of resources from this thing, including a ton of bronze dragon scales, and I used those dragon scales to make myself a brand new set of dragon scale armor. Since how my old set was nearly broken, I needed that new set. I needed more XP and more arrows now, so I went back to my mob grinder, and honestly, I just felt like that was incredibly satisfying. I was AFKing for like 20 to 30 minutes just for that one bit. I absolutely loved it. Also, while exploring around, I found this bufflon, and I decided to tame it. I just needed to find a few herbs, combine them together, right-click on the bufflon, and we basically tamed it just like that. I found this saddle earlier from the skeleton spotters, so I could easily control this thing, and I could even force it to attack mobs. Once I punched them, the bufflon would just start attacking them. So that was really interesting. I figured maybe I'd be able to use this in the future to help me take out some cyclops. So now I was finally nearly powerful enough to take on the female dragon to get the dragon egg. But first, I did decide that I actually wanted to take on the ender dragon. So I made myself an end portal schematic, went in there, and I already had all my ender pearls and blaze rods gathered from earlier. So I just plugged all of that in and went into the end. Because, you know, I figured why not take on this standard dragon of Minecraft before actually taking on a difficult dragon in the overworld. So yeah, you guys have obviously seen dragon fights time and time again. I won't bore you too much with it. Obviously, with my OP sword, it wasn't really that much of a challenge. I just hit it a bunch, it flew away, hit it with a bow a bunch, it flew back down, hit it with my sword a bunch more times until it died. I made sure to grab all of the XP and the egg, and then we just went back to the overworld. Next, I wanted to practice just a little bit more actually fighting these more powerful dragons, so I came across this other low-level fire dragon in the overworld, fought them. It was incredibly easy, only lost a couple of hearts. So after doing that, I was starting to feel more prepared for taking on the final dragon boss fight. Just in case, I did decide to create some health potions and golden apples, so I started a farm to get the glittering watermelons that I needed for my health potions, went and broke a ton of trees to get a few apples, and I also killed a ton of cyclops. Because if you hold a cyclops eye, then it actually weakens all mobs in the area, and that includes the female dragon. So I found my way down to the female dragon den, where I began to fight it. First off, I cleared all these extra mobs in the area that were just sort of annoying me. I then used my water to try and keep the dragon away from me and started attacking it with my bow. I eventually stuck around behind it and started putting torches everywhere because all of these extra mobs were really starting to annoy me, so I wanted to prevent them from spawning. But then once I did that, I went back to fighting the dragon. And this thing was so much scarier. It kept on lifting me up in the air, grabbing me in its mouth. It did way more damage than any other dragon that I have fought. It was so insane. Even with my specialized sword to help me counter it, this was still an incredibly difficult fight. I sat in water the entire time to try and prevent its fire attacks, but it was still doing massive amounts of damage to me. I actually had to use all 3 of my health potions, use every single last golden apple I had, until finally I was getting it down to just a few more hits. I was struggling to get those final hits on it. It was shoving me away. I was running out of HP fast, but finally I got that final hit and I defeated the fire dragon. So I went ahead and looted it and I got myself the dragon egg. So with that, I went back to my base, started a fire on some netherrack, right-click the dragon egg on the fire, and now I just had to wait a few days for it to hatch, and I would have my very own baby dragon. And cut to a few days later, it had hatched. I realized that it was completely gone. Where did it go? So I went down to my farm and realized it was just hidden in the farm here. I went ahead, tamed it really quick, and now I just needed to feed it for it to grow. This is probably something I should have been working on a long time ago, but I actually didn't have the food to tame it. That was my mistake. So I really quick had to make a schematic for a barn to go place that barn down. This was now an area for me to breed mobs because you actually needed like 5 food just for 1 dragon meal, and I needed like a full stack of dragon meal. So yeah, I needed quite a lot. So I just ran around my desert a whole bunch, finding as many pigs as I could and started taming them. And I basically just spent literally the entirety of 2 to 3 days just breeding them as quickly as I could. I also brought my enchantment table to me to get a looting sword, so that way that would help me get the wither skulls that I needed, and plus once it was time to kill the pigs, I would get as much food from that as possible. Once they finished growing, I went to the nether and got all of the wither skulls that I needed. Since I had the looting sword, it wasn't too difficult. I just ran around this base. Eventually got these skulls that I needed. It did take a little while, but again, not that long. Went back to my barn, and finally it was time to say goodbye to all of these poor little piggies. Your sacrifice will be remembered. You will be feeding my dragon, so I thank you all. I turned all of that food into 1 full stack of dragon meal, fed all of that to my dragon, and leveled him up to, I think level 3 is what I managed to get him to. Obviously, I would have preferred level 5, the max level, but I needed a full nether stack of dragon meal, and that's something I just didn't really have time to do right now. So after getting used to the controls for flying him around, I took about attacking that poor little pig on the ground there. Basically, my dragon has a fire attack as well as a melee attack. And then before I actually fought off the wither, I wanted to try a challenging fight. So I found a cyclops and actually used my dragon to battle this giant cyclops. I breathed fire on it, I used my melee attacks, and we were able to do massive amounts of damage to it really quickly until we eventually took him out. With that, I was starting to feel confident enough, so I spawned in the wither, and on our final day here, we were taking on the wither with my dragon. It was honestly a lot more challenging than I thought it was going to be. The wither obviously does massive amounts of damage to me. It was really challenging. My dragon was actually starting to get low on HP, but the wither could no longer fly, so I figured we were safe until my dragon actually died. I didn't realize his HP was getting that low. I was just focused on the wither's HP to try and take him out as fast as possible. I felt so devastated, but the fight had to continue, so I used my sword to finish off and kill the wither. And now, I mean, I was so bummed out. This was literally our last day stranded in the desert, and my poor dragon that I've spent like the last 10 days trying to get and tame and grow is now gone, and I was so sad. I decided to build a tribute to my dragon and decided to name him Piff after Piff the Magic Dragon. I went and got all the extra blocks I needed, placed them around him as a nice little shrine to Piff the Dragon. as is tradition, I usually sleep with my pet in the room on the final day, but yeah, can't really do that with Piff. I decided to spend this last sunrise with him at the shrine that I built for him. It was quite sad, but yeah. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, please be sure to hit the like button, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.